Well, here we are. We are Hogvillenet YouTube Live. We're doing a pregame this time. We had technical difficulties a week ago. It's been a week between games for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas went and avenged last season's debacle in Tulsa. That was a week ago Saturday. And we know what happened. The dominoes really started to fall in a bad way a season ago for the Razorbacks after that Oklahoma loss. The first of the year, Arkansas had won its first 9 games. Then the Hogs all of a sudden lose to Oklahoma. They play their Central Arkansas game a week later against mid-major Hofstra. Arkansas loses that game. So when you combine the margins and the losses, it was 30 points. And it's not a good way to really kind of get, as you're winding through your non-conference schedule to get into SEC play. Hogs lose 2 in a row. They go home for a win over maybe the worst team in Division I at that time, Elon, and then they start SEC play right after that, 0-3. So they lost 5 out of 6 games. We don't want to harp too much on what happened a year ago. We're talking about this season, right? Welcome everybody again, Hogvillenet YouTube Live. I hope you go to hogville.net for your content. Dudley Dawson, Otis Kirk, and myself. We know that between football, baseball, and basketball, we've got it covered. There's other sports there. But we want to move forward now because Arkansas has gotten off to, if you look at that stretch last year, this year you're back against Oklahoma for a mid-December game in Tulsa, and you get the job done. A 10-point win. Arkansas led by as many as 16 points in that game. And it wasn't just a revenge factor there. That was a litmus test for this Razorbacks team coming off that, the loss of Trevin Brazile, the star forward for the season in the previous game, in the midweek game against Greensboro. So Arkansas had a lot going on in Tulsa last week, and I thought pass that test with flying colors. Now you're in North Little Rock, at Simmons Bank Arena for today's non-conference game. And, this is, again, last year, a bad run. Right now, Arkansas can really build off of this. Bradley's a good mid-major team. This is a team that, if you look at the net rankings, 76. So if Arkansas were to win today and Bradley somehow finishes in the top 75 in net, that's actually going to be a quad 2 win, which looks good on the resume. Bradley's got like the 61st ranked defense when you look at Ken Palm Analytics and adjusted defensive efficiency. Arkansas is number 9 in that category. Here's a Bradley team that's holding teams just like OU was in the 50s per game average scoring. We saw what Arkansas did in that, shot 59% and obliterated that, 88 points in that 10-point win a week ago. So tonight we'll see, or today, games at 3. We'll see if Arkansas is able to, do something similar, get its offense going. I think that's been really the strength of this team is getting to the basket. Arkansas ranks 25th in Division I in field goal percentage at just over 49%. I think Bradley ranks for 43rd in defensive field goal percentage, holding teams just below 40 at 39%. So there's a 10-point cushion there in terms of what Arkansas is doing and what Bradley's doing defensively. And so we'll see what gives there. Arkansas's game, again, is getting downhill. Minimize 3-point attempts, get downhill. I think Arkansas's done its best work. I think it's shooting around 31% from 3. Not great. Bradley's holding teams around that mark. So there's not much to take away from that other than how many threes does Arkansas feel like it needs to put up. If Arkansas is shooting a lot of threes, it means Bradley's doing its job, taking care of those driving lanes, and Arkansas having a hard time solving. Now, Bradley's going to play mostly a man-to-man defense. There is some 1-3-1. They will pressure three-quarter court. That's not to speed the game up. It's actually to slow Arkansas down and get Arkansas into a lower, not be as efficient offensively once it crosses midcourt. But it won't be designed to speed the game up. And, Arkansas, I thought this would be a strength of this team would be transition offense. And it really hasn't been. It's been kind of up and down. Some games, yes, but overall, not what I thought it might be. Now, a good part of that's probably because Nick Smith Jr. missed 6 games. Arkansas has only been at full health for 1 game, and they scored 99 points in that game. So we saw the blueprint maybe for what Arkansas would have looked like. We don't want to dwell too much on what's not going to be now. Brazile's gone for the season. But the point is, we'll see if Arkansas is able to improve in some areas now that Nick Smith's getting, he even said it in the press conference this week. He's still not as explosive as he tends to be. He hasn't quite gotten there yet. And we've already seen him in the past week, SEC Freshman of the Week, the National Freshman of the Week, according to the U.S. Basketball Writers Association, Dick Vitale's Diaper Dandy of the Week. But he averaged 21.5 points in Arkansas's 2 wins a week ago to get that honor. And he was pretty efficient, does other things. We see him make good passes, good decisions for a guy that's going to be a volume shooter. He gets to spots, man, and he's tough. We'll talk more about that. But Nick Smith Jr. in concert with I mean Ricky Council the fourth, leading the SEC in scoring at over 19 points per game. So I think Arkansas, when you look at the value offensively from those guys as scorers, and then some of the other things they do as facilitators, but then you look at Anthony Black, who I think checks so many boxes. To me, he's this year's backcourt version of what Jalen Williams was in the front court. The Hogs just seem to be better when he's on the floor. His box plus minus is typically among the best, if not the best on the team. That's consistent. We know he can score. That was a question mark coming into this season. With Nick out, he proved that he could in Maui, and he's been a double-figure scorer, still top three on the team in scoring, along with Nick Smith Jr. and Council. So this is an elite backcourt. When you get Devo Davis back, and I thought he did a really good job last week. 10 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals, and that grind and comeback win over Greensboro in the midweek game. Yeah, he took a lot of shots. We saw him take a couple of shots early, maybe ill-advised against Oklahoma, and then he dialed that down. I thought he did a great job of just playing his game, the best of what he brings to the floor, which is defensively. I thought he did a great job on Sherfield for the largest chunk of that game. Sherfield had numbers, but it started early and ended with him. And there was a long middle there where Devo and Ricky Council and some others, with Arkansas switched defensively, did a really good job of limiting him. He couldn't get back on track. So I thought that was a big part and key. The other thing was the blue collar stuff. And this is what I'm going to look for in North Little Rock today. What does Arkansas do from a blue collar standpoint against a grinding, gritty team? We saw Greensboro hang in there. Greensboro led for most of that game, much of that game, and Arkansas had to come back and figure out a way to win one. This could be another ugly situation like that. What can Arkansas do to win the steals? I mean, this is a Bradley team that's averaging 8.5 a game. That's pretty strong. Arkansas averages nearly 10, 9.7 steals per game. Arkansas did a great job against OU when you looked at turnovers for both teams and what Arkansas did scoring off those turnovers. And when you looked at those hustle plays, blocks and steals, Arkansas more than doubled up OU. If Arkansas has that kind of game, with a huge home state crowd behind it, and is winning those blue collar battles, it's going to get wild at Simmons Bank Arena. It will get wild in there if Arkansas is dictating those hustle plays against a grinding team, because this is a team that's going to try to make it ugly. So Arkansas has got to be willing to dive on that floor first and win those plays. And I think that could be something we keep an eye on. Now, a lot of fans aren't going to be able to see this game. Obviously, most fans won't. It's not televised. It's not live stream. It's not going to be available unless you're at the game. This will be a packed house, 15, 16, 17,000 fans. I don't know what the official attendance is in there, but it'll be packed. I'm going to do my best with Twitter and tweeting out some highlights as I can. But I really fully expect, when you look at over the years, it's always a tough game in Central Arkansas ever since they built this arena 20-something years ago. Back in old Barton Coliseum in Little Rock, Arkansas had a big winning advantage and brought some really good teams into play. What we call high major teams now. They don't do that. They play solid mid-major, sometimes low D1, but some good programs. And the record's 12-10. That goes back to Nolan Richardson at the end of his era. So every coach has struggled in Central Arkansas. Musselman, who's got 82 wins and 29 losses at Arkansas, he's 1-1 in Central Arkansas. That's a small sample size, but both games, they could have lost both games. Hofstra, winning last year. 2 years prior to that, in Musselman's first season, Arkansas had to come back against Valparaiso. Had to have a big run late in that game to flip that and get things going in Arkansas's favor. So there's a lot at play today for Arkansas. You're 9-1. You want to get to 10-1. If Arkansas can do that, it'll match the start it had 2 years ago in that first Elite Eight season. But that 10-1 start, that was a reduced schedule because of COVID, and Arkansas actually opened up SEC play on the road at Auburn and picked up a tough win there to get to 10-1. So Arkansas can get to 10-1 today. 2 games between when it'll actually start SEC play on the road, by the way, at the end of the month at LSU. Then you've got North Carolina, Nashville to wrap up the home part of your non-conference schedule on Wednesday. So just a few days away from now. And then you've got gaps between games. It'll be a full week until that LSU game on Wednesday, the 28th. Then you wait another week before Arkansas opens up SEC play at home against Missouri in early January. So there's few and far between. There's a lot of gaps between games. I know Eric Musselman doesn't like that. But the point now is to go and take care of business when you do get your chance. These games are always fun. They're always exciting. Musselman talks specifically about the crowd, the atmosphere at these games. And I think that's something, that he's going to always, when he looks back on these games, he obviously what matters is winning. But I think he understands and appreciates the fact that he recruits Central Arkansas. You look on the roster, Nick Smith Jr., Devo Davis, we mentioned those names. Even Kamani Johnson, who's from the Bronx, played a couple of seasons down here. He lived in Little Rock, so this is kind of a homecoming for him. This is important for recruiting. It's important for fans around the state that normally, it's a little cliche. This gets kicked around, but there are fans who can't make it to Fayetteville, and they'll be able to get into this game. There's a lot more ticket availability at these Little Rock games than you could ever get in Northwest Arkansas. And that goes for a lot of just individual fans just want to come see the Hogs. So this is good for them. So this is a different, it's a neutral site game in terms of it's not Arkansas's home court. NCAA net, the way that works is it will be treated as a home game. So Arkansas doesn't get credit for this being a neutral site game. The other part I think that's important when we look at this is Arkansas's got 5 wins in a row. We know this time last year, I mentioned it in the lead, that Arkansas really had a downward spiral right now. Arkansas's got some real momentum. And normally, Arkansas really starts picking up that momentum after hitting some snags, kind of at this point, early conference play, and then they get on a roll. Right now, this may not work out like it has the last 2 seasons, and that's a good thing probably. If Arkansas can keep winning and get that snowball rolling, I think the biggest question marks are going to be life without Trevor Brazile. So far, so good. Finishing against Greensboro, he didn't play most of that game. We saw what Arkansas was able to do against Oklahoma. Other guys stepping up. We're going to talk about that here. But I think now you start to see how much in a positive snowball can you get going, wrapping up December. And again, this game against Bradley is not going to be easy. This is a good mid-major team. This is a Bradley team that's won 4 games in a row itself. So it's on a winning streak. It's got losses, by the way. It's 3 losses. It's lost to Utah State and to Auburn. Those were, I think, 20-point plus defeats when you look at the margin. Both of those teams scored in the mid-80s. So, that's something to kind of consider for a team that's holding teams down to a 59-point per game average when they've stepped up in competition and lost some games. They've given up mid-80s. And they've also lost to Liberty. Arkansas fans know what that feels like in football. Don't want to bring that up, but I did. But an 11-point loss to Liberty. Otherwise, teams knocked off some other mid-majors, Southeast Missouri, Northern Iowa, Missouri State. So those are some of the names, Eastern Michigan. But this is a team, again, that's won 4 in a row. And so when I look at the record, it's unbeaten at home, similar to Arkansas. But when it's gone on the road, true road games, it's 2-1, but in neutral site games, it's 0-2. And to me, this is a neutral site game. Neither team's playing on its home court, but each game takes on its own identity. Musselman loves to say it. I'll repeat it, but that's really his coined phrase. And we'll see what happens today. I think Bradley will come in looking to knock Arkansas off. They've probably studied and know the history that Arkansas struggles in this venue, and so they'll look to make it into an ugly, down in the mud game in front of all those fans. So we'll see what Arkansas is able to do. Again, you look at what Arkansas, I go back to OU. This is a different matchup, different type of team, but OU was a good defensive team in addition to being a good offensive team. When you look at shooting the ball, efficiency, not necessarily scoring, but efficiency, and Arkansas was able to pretty much dismantle the Sooners, I thought. 59% field goal shooting, getting to 88 points. I don't know that Arkansas is going to replicate that today, but I think as long as Arkansas sticks to what works, get to the basket, use that length, athleticism, positional size advantages. Look, this Bradley team's got good size. Let's get into that a little bit. They've had some injury problems like Arkansas has, maybe a little more than Arkansas has. They've had 3 players out, kind of coming and going. They've got 3 of their top players that each have only played 4 games through the first 10. Musselman thinks everybody's going to be ready today. All hands on deck for Bradley. But they've got size on the front line, a couple of 6'9" guys that can get it done, averaging double figures. One's an all-league. Mast. I'll go with last names. I don't know if I can pronounce all the first names. But Mast is a guy that's been out. He's had injuries, but he's back. He just returned, and he's a double-figure scorer, a good rebounder, shooting over 61% from the field. Montgomery, a 6'6" wing that's been out, also injured, just returning their most recent win. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything. And then you've got Henry, who has had concussion issues, played 4 games in November. Musselman thinks he's going to come back. He's the team's leading scorer, Jashawn Henry, another forward. Their leading scorer right now in terms of guys that's played every game is another double-figure scorer, a 6'9" guy, on that front line. So there's size on that front line. But I think Arkansas positionally, even if there's size with Bradley, I think Arkansas, when you look at size, length, athleticism, you combine all those things, Arkansas should have another advantage. Musman recruited to have these kind of advantages game in and game out. And so you look for Arkansas to exploit every team by doing what the strength is, and that's finding ways to attack. I mentioned Arkansas's 25%, or excuse me, ranked 25th in the country in field goal percentage at over 49%. A big part of that, what's playing into that, is getting to the basket. Arkansas has also kind of started slow, getting to the free throw line. Arkansas has improved there. They're now in the top 50 in terms of getting to the free throw line. I think they're maybe 28th, maybe top 30. Getting to the free throw line, almost 23 attempts per game. We know that's part of the wheelhouse strength. So Arkansas's got to find ways. And to me, it's the guys attacking. It's Ricky Council getting downhill and not settling for threes. He's done a good job of that. He doesn't take a lot. He economizes. It's Anthony Black making his opportunities when the defense sags off. Picking and choosing when to drive, when to take the three when they're giving it to him. He's been good. He's been good when you look at the overall percentages. He's been good when defense is giving that. And then Nick Smith Jr., we know he's continually to get stronger, continually to get his timing down. And he's a guy that can go left or right, man. And then he's picking and choosing on the move. He sees where everybody's moving and making choices off of that. He's got an array of little spinners, runners, floaters, pull-up game. We know Ricky Council's got some pull-up, but these are the keys. And then playing off other guys. Mekhi Mitchell, who I thought was outstanding in these last two games for the Razorbacks, was a guy that really, when I looked at two-man game, we've seen him effective with his back to the basket and playing some of it with AB, rolling off of some of the work with AB in two-man game. But we saw him making some nice backdoor cuts in the last game to Nick Smith Jr. And then, he's had some assist games this year where you're looking at it, he's got 3-4 assists. So Mekhi Mitchell gives Arkansas a little bit more maybe than we sometimes realize. And I think his last two games last week, he was solid in both halves of both games. I think he was mostly a first half producer prior to that. So to me, that's huge for Arkansas on that front line, especially with Trevin Brazile out. Mitchell averaged a double-double last week, 11 and a half points and 10 rebounds to go with blocking shots and getting steals. And, you look at the assists, he's a guy that's helping Arkansas and checking a lot of boxes. So it's important when I look at that front line and I start talking now about Jordan Walsh. He's a wing/4. In small ball lineups, he's a 4. He's a guy I think Arkansas is going to be more one big and one small ball 4, and that's Jordan Walsh, man. And boy, he stepped up against Oklahoma. 12 points. He was 2 of 5 from 3 for 40%. He was battling on the offensive glass, getting stickbacks and tough traffic. And you look at that 7'3", 7'4" wingspan on him at 6'7" with athleticism, and you can see why he's effective doing those things. You also have to have a mentality for that. It's not just about your measurables. And I thought he did an outstanding job against OU. It was his best game of the season. Defensively, he was a menace, getting deflections, blocking shots, getting steals. And I thought he kind of helped set the tone on that end. We talked about those hustle plays. He was a big part of that. And so I thought he really stepped up. And that's the kind of guy you want to see him in concert with Mekhi Mitchell. Both have been in the starting lineup. You want to see them continue to produce and be consistent, not just production and statistics, but real impact that your eye test tells you is helping this team get better and support and supplementing what that I call it elite backcourt. It is elite. We see Kamani Johnson, Devo Davis, what they can do, what they can bring to the table off the bench. That's going to be important for Arkansas. Every game out is going to be important today against a Bradley team that's going to go about 9 or 10 deep. So Arkansas needs quality, contributions from its bench play. And then we'll see who else steps up. There's probably going to be at some point today a Jalen Graham that comes in or somebody else. So keep an eye on that. We'll see if all the Arkansas kids get to play, since it's the one and only in Central Arkansas. Some of that may be dictated by how well things are going, but there might be spots for a Joseph Pinion or a Darian Ford to get into this game. Musman's done that. He's put both in those tight first half. Seems like Arkansas is always in a battle in the first half. Both of those young men have played at times when the game was still in doubt, briefly, but we'll see if they get opportunities today. That's what makes this exciting, because every night out, if Musman's going to say each game takes its own identity, even though he's a top tight, when you look at the minutes, game to game, 6 guys, maybe 7, but it's sprinkled in there. Some other guys maybe getting opportunities or helping Arkansas on the spot, and you just never know who it's going to be and what it's going to be. Again, I think it all starts with the backcourt. It then falls into decision making on offense. Arkansas was brilliant last week taking care of the ball relative to what Oklahoma did. If Arkansas replicates that and plays to its strengths, this will be a double-digit win for Arkansas. They'll run away with it. If it's more like what happened against Greensboro, where Arkansas took the bait, fired up a bunch of early shot clock threes, and just never could get in a rhythm, some of that was credit to Greensboro, but I think also some of it was a discredit to Arkansas's decision making through big parts of that game. Of course, losing Brazil didn't help, and then Arkansas got it done. It always seems to do that, but in Central Arkansas, it doesn't always go that way. Some of these tight games go the other way, and you're left scratching your head. How did it happen? Arkansas doesn't want that to snowball today. Okay, so it's Hogvillenet YouTube Live. I haven't seen a lot of comments. I saw a few roll by, and I was still talking, so I need to start paying attention to the comments. Again, this is an opportunity to do a pregame. Typically, we're going to do a postgame today. It may be 30 minutes, it may be an hour, depends on how quickly the postgame press conference goes once it's over. But I'm going to come back and we'll do a postgame, and I hope you'll join me for that as well, because a lot of you won't have been able to see it. You'll probably listen on the radio, and so we'll go through what I saw and what the vibe was like there and what happened. We'll break it down. But Hogvillenet YouTube Live, we love doing this. Go to hogville.net for all of our content. It's a veteran staff when you're talking about Otis Kirk, Dudley Dawson, and myself. We're not spring chickens, but there's a lot of stuff that we're involved in trying to bring you the latest with Razorback sports, especially football, basketball, and baseball, the big three. But we do spread out and cover the others as well. And so we hope you go and see that content. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about individual players now. For the Razorbacks, and I want to go back to Jordan Walsh. Here's a guy that's, obviously one of the 3 5-star recruits coming in. He and Nick and Anthony Black have been on the court together now just for less than a handful of games still. This will be their 5th game together, really the 4th since they've been in the starting lineup together. But Jordan, to me, was a guy that we probably didn't talk enough about, because you could see, I wouldn't say he struggled as much as I think he was filling out what his role just might be, because he's not a guy that you're looking at as an alpha scorer type. He's in that tweener spot at 3-4. And I think because Musselman has continued to say, and his teammates have continued to say, he might be one of the problem solvers on the 3-point shooting. And we saw that against OU. Arkansas is going to have to take some and make some, and it can't be the same 1 or 2 guys every game. You need other guys to step up, and he's so versatile. And I really, really was pleased with what I saw in his maturity, because to me it looked like the game slowed down for him against OU. It hadn't always looked that way. So if you want to call that a struggle point, maybe. But I felt like he's buying into the speed of the game at this level now and what he can do to have a positive impact in games, using his strengths to his advantage. And he's a guy that there's a lot of blue collar stuff in what Jordan Walsh brings. And I do think he translates to the next level as a 3-and-D guy as he continues to develop his skill. But I like the fact that he took those 5 threes. They were not forced. Those were good looks. He knocks down 2 of them. You'll take 40% all day long. But this is another step for him. Today's another step potentially for Jordan Walsh. And so we want to keep an eye on. Obviously, we're going to find out soon enough. But I think we've talked so much about some of the other backcourt pieces and him kind of being versatile enough to give you time at the 3, give you minutes at that small ball 4, that sometimes it gets lost when you look at some of the stats the other guys are putting up, what he's bringing to the table. And I think we're going to see more and more contribution for him, and it's going to make life better moving on without a guy like Trevin Brazile. Because look, I think Arkansas coaches, I can tell you this, they felt like they could beat anybody in the country with Brazile in the lineup with what they also have. We go back to that San Jose State game a couple of Saturdays ago, and we saw the 99-point game. We saw that big 59-point second half explosion. And so I think, we just saw such a small sample size of the possibilities. But you can't turn that clock back. But what you can do is develop guys and get guys in position to understand what it's going to take from them, to understand what it's going to take to get this team at a level where it can beat anybody in the country. I still think Arkansas has those pieces, but we're seeing it happen in real time and evolve in real time. That's why games like today are so important. Um, because again, you mid-major, yeah, Arkansas struggle in Central Arkansas. What can you really take away from it other than let's just go get a win? I think you want to see Makai Mitchell and Jordan Walsh and Kamani Johnson. Those three guys continue to be consistent, continue to impact, and then see who else they can bring along. Who else can Musselman get Jalen Graham some good minutes? Can he get him a role? Can he be a guy that they count on at times? Are there matchups in this game that might favor Graham? Did he have a good week of practice? We don't. These are things we don't know. We might learn about later. But I'm just throwing out different things. We've seen Mikel Mitchell back up his brother with some quality minutes earlier in the year. Haven't seen as much of him lately, but maybe we do. He had some spot minutes in Maui that weren't bad. They were good. So we'll see if there's some of that coming down the pike. It could be today. You just never know. But to me, Arkansas still has the pieces to be the kind of team that can beat anybody in the country on any given day. And you could say that about any team, but I think Arkansas really, with Brazil, I have no doubt about it. Without him, I think there's still some questions there. And I think some of these guys have made a good step forward in this past week with that loss of that key player. They've taken some good steps forward to help, maybe answer that. It's a small sample size. We need to see more of it, and that's what I'm saying. So those are some things I'm going to be looking at today. The other thing is I can't wait to see Nick Smith's energy. Now, here's a guy we talked about in the press conference. I've talked about it, I think, last week. Shows a lot of energy in games, emotional energy. And I think it's a positive. I don't think it's negative. I think it's a positive. And I think coming home, we'll see spots today maybe where Nick gets invigorated to the point of wearing those emotions on his sleeves. And again, I see him as positives, but here's a guy that wants to win badly. That's the key with him. Everything else, statistics, all that, yeah, they tend to pile up for him, but they're not what's important to him. Winning is, and I want to see some of that emotion again today. We'll see what Devo Davis does in his return. We'll see Kamani. Kamani's got a little flair. He gets excited out there. He gets pumped up. So this could be a fun game for Arkansas. If you're an Arkansas Razorback fan getting to come out today and watch it, you're hoping that it's one of those games that's kind of a landslide. It'd be great for Arkansas to have a runaway win. They've had enough tight games. I don't expect Arkansas to jump all over this team. Usually it's close first half. Usually when Arkansas wins by double digits, it's a second half thing. So we'll see how it plays out today. Arkansas typically doesn't have its way in any game, wherever it's played early on. But we'll see. Maybe today's different. Other things going on. We could talk about recruiting. We probably need to hit some of that because Arkansas put out 2 huge offers to 5 stars. These are guys Arkansas had been recruiting from that class of 2024 for months, for a long time, going out and seeing them. These are players that have been recruited for a while and didn't have offers, and now they do. 2 5 stars class of 2024. Arkansas put these offers out, I believe, while they were traveling on the bus from Fayetteville to Little Rock yesterday. They were coming down to have a practice at Simmons Bank Arena. I think Musk called a couple of players on the ride down. But let's start with Isaiah Elohim, Elohim, a 6'5" guard at Sierra Canyon in California. He's originally from New York, so he's a guy that's now kind of trekked to the West Coast, that he's been out there for a while. But he's a top 15 national 5-star, big guard, already having a solid season at Sierra Canyon. But he's a guy that was going to take an unofficial visit to Arkansas in October. That fell through, but he finally got his Arkansas offer. I think I made the mistake of reaching out to him a little too soon. He goes, "Man, I just got the offer 5 minutes ago. I'm still in a state of shock." He was trying to respond with his excitement level. So he'd just gotten the offer, but he's glad to have it. Told me he's 100% for sure wanting to visit. And then Liam McNeely from Austin, Texas. He's at Montverde Academy now for his junior season. He's a guy that Arkansas has also been on for quite a while. Reaching out to him, going to see him play, and now he gets the Arkansas offer. And he told me that he was excited to have it, and he just recently took his first official visit to Indiana. So that would be a junior year official visit. So that just happened. And he's a guy that's one of the top shooters in the country. 6'7", big wing, small forward, can knock down the three. I think he's shooting around 50%. That's elite, right? That's an elite percentage on any level from distance. He also can create and get in the mid-range, some nice fadeaway stuff. Great footwork, so a lot of craft. in what he does. And then at 6'7", he's big. He can get downhill, and you got to deal with him physically. And he's got a high IQ, so he's not afraid to make a pass and facilitate off of that. A guy that's getting better. I've noticed when I watched him last spring and summer with his strength, getting a little bit better defensively, you throwing that frame around and getting a little stronger. So we know he'll continue to develop physically. I mentioned Isaiah Elam. He's a guy that's got some girth. I mean, he's a physical guard in a good way. I mean, he's a strong guard. So these are two guys that are, they have a who's who offer list, and Arkansas gets on the board with offers. I think that's a big deal. Let's talk about recruits that are coming in tonight. I know that K-Honor Boateng, national number 13, according to Rivals. He's a 5-star, 6'6" wing. Little Rock Central, plays the Arkansas Hawks on the Adidas 3SSB grassroots circuit in the spring and summer. But he's been in Bentonville in Northwest Arkansas for the Hoop Hall South Classic for games on Thursday night, back-to-back games Thursday and Friday. The Tigers split those games. Big dramatic win on Thursday night. He had a double-double, 19 and 10. But he's back home, coming back to Central Arkansas, and plans to be at the game tonight for Arkansas Bradley. So K-Honor Boateng, he's been a priority recruit for the Razorbacks. When you're talking about class of 2024, backcourt 5 stars. Luke Moore, his teammate, class of 2025, 6'2" point guard. I think he had 10 points and 6 assists in that win Thursday night over the number 2 ranked team out of North Carolina, Moravian. That I think it's Hickory, North Carolina. But he's coming in. He's been invited. He'll be there. Jashawn Hayes, also class of 2025, big 6'6" guard out of Whitehall, has got 4 40-point games already this season. I interviewed him a couple of days ago as we were previewing the King Cotton Holiday Classic in Pine Bluff to be played in about a week. And he was talking about, just looking at him, he's put on a lot of good muscle strength. He's gotten bigger since his freshman season, but he'll also be at the game tonight. He's a guy that did really well at Arkansas basketball camp a few months ago, was one of the standouts there. And I know Arkansas has real interest. And he's got an Ole Miss offer when you start talking about Jashawn Hayes. Again, 6'5", 6'6", big guard, added some muscle, good athleticism, very coach's son. Very savvy player, finds ways to get to the free throw line, can score at all 3 levels. You hear that thrown around, he really can because he knows how to play. And we know, when I mentioned Boateng, if you don't know, this guy's chiseled, man. He's built like an NBA player already at that 6'5", pushing 6'6", athleticism off the charts. Literally, he's one of the top athletes in the country for his class, and he's really started to add skill, 3-point shooting, dribble drive creation. And then he's just tough. He's a physical player as well. So these are outstanding players, in-state guys. They get a chance to come and see the game. That's great. There may be more players that we talk about later that are coming in. Some of the other ones have games today, like a Dallas Thomas who's a highly rated top 35 player in that 2024 class. Well, when we talk Terrion Burgess at Benton, national number 17, according to 247 Sports, in the 2025 class, 6'9" wing, who I think will be a 5-star. I think he's a 5-star. I do. I think he's a 5-star talent. I think he'll eventually get there. He's got a game tonight. So some of these players that normally would be in attendance are playing. It's the holidays, a lot of games through, every day. There seems like their game, even through the weekend. So some of the guys that would normally be there, recruits won't. But it'll be a packed house, always a lot of energy for these games. And again, I look for Arkansas. If Arkansas does what it brought to the table against Oklahoma, again, this is a different matchup, but sometimes it's about what imprint you decide to put on that day. And are you committed to doing what works best for you? And some nights it's easier and guys are on the same page and some not. And so to me, with this Arkansas team against this level of competition, I don't care what Bradley's rated as a mid-major. To me, it's more about what is Arkansas doing. Bradley will do some stuff to take things away. It's a good team. And I look at that high major opponent, Auburn, who I think is a little overrated, and Auburn wins by 20 plus and gets to 85 points. So I think Arkansas can, control this game if it so chooses. All right. We've got to 35 minutes. I'm going to wrap up pregame. I'm going to save it. It's going to be a busy day. I'm doing double duty again. I've got a game story I'm doing for Hogville.net. I'll be doing a game story for the Associated Press. I did see a few comments scroll on here, but I was just getting carried away talking about recruiting and kind of some of my thoughts for the game later today. But we will reconvene. We'll come back for a post game on Hogvillenet YouTube Live. We're going to do that 30 minutes, maybe an hour. It just depends on how quickly the post-game press conferences go. But we will be back later today to talk about what we saw when the 10th ranked Arkansas Razorbacks play Bradley at Simmons Bank Arena in North Little Rock here on Saturday afternoon. See you later.